What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review, and this time we're taking a look at Cujo, based off the Stephen King novel of the same name, directed by Louis Teague. Now, I'm going to make this review as short as I possibly can. I overall think that Cujo is a decent horror film. This movie is not great, but it's also not bad either. This movie is kind of basic. The basic plotline of Cujo is this easygoing and lovable Saint Bernard gets bitten by a bat, and because they got bitten by this bat, it contracts rabies. And the rabies kind of make this dog very, very feral and very, very violent to the point where it goes on a killing spree. Cujo is basically a slasher movie with a Saint Bernard because Cujo acts like a slasher. He acts like Jason or Michael, just this stalking dog, this hulking, stalking figure that just attacks you at random. That's pretty much the overall basic plot of Cujo. So let's talk about it for a little bit. I'm going to talk about this. I think the cast in this movie is actually really solid for a horror film. This movie stars Dee Wallace, who plays the character of Donna Trenton. And Dee Wallace, she's a great actress, and especially in the horror genre. And I thought she did a good performance in this. Not her best performance in a horror movie by any stretch of the imagination, but she was believable as a mother and as a wife. Daniel, what's his name? Daniel Hugh Kelly plays the husband known as Vic, and I like him in the role. His best scenes are with his young son Tad. Pretty much Vic and Tad in this movie have a really close bond with one another, and the wife not so much, to the point where the wife is pretty much messing around with this character called Steve, played by Christopher Stone, who at the time was Dee Wallace's real husband. With all that being said, I think Tad and Vic, they pretty much have the best bond in this whole movie, that father-son relationship. And you really buy the relationship, and you can clearly tell that Vic loves his son Tad to death, and Tad, vice versa, feels more of a closer connection to his father than his mother. But when we get to the second half of this movie, it's actually Tad and his mother that are trapped in this car being attacked by Cujo once Cujo is in full-blown rabies psycho mode, and their bond starts to grow throughout the experience. So I thought it was pretty good, pretty decent. The performances all around were pretty solid. The young child actor at the time who played Tad, in some scenes he's actually not too bad, and in other scenes he can get quite annoying. Especially once he and his mother get trapped in the car, his whining can start to get really grating onto the ears. And the movie does try to do a fake out of the little boy almost dying. In the book, Tad dies, but in the movie, he survives. I mean, these two were trapped in a car with no food, no water for days, being attacked by a rabid dog. It's amazing that this little kid was able to survive for that long. Now, let's talk about the story of Cujo. Now, since Cujo's got a very basic premise to begin with, there's not really a whole lot of story. And the first half of this movie is basically a family drama. And it's kind of boring. I'm not going to lie. The first 45 minutes of this movie is boring. It's basically all just set up. And by the time Cujo finally gets into his kill mode, the whole family drama dynamic kind of falls and gets wrapped up fairly quickly near the end of the movie. Because basically, from then on, it's just Donna trying to fight off Cujo while all the while trying to protect her child, while all the while they're trapped in this car. So yeah, the first half of this movie, really, really boring, kind of painful. The acting is fine, but there's not really much to go off from because it's just a family drama in the middle of this horror movie about a killer dog. Yeah. The supporting cast in this movie is pretty solid too. It has Ed Lautner, who is actually an abusive car mechanic, who actually is the owner of Cujo. And when Cujo goes on his kill spree, he kills Ed's best friend, pretty much. So yeah, that's that. From a production standpoint, I think Louis Teague actually did a good job directing this movie. It doesn't have a whole lot of suspenseful scenes, but it does have some pretty good shots. There's particularly this one shot of this little boy coming outside of the house that's engulfed in a bunch of fog, and he comes face to face with Cujo, who by this point is starting to look really gnarly looking. And it's a really, really coolly directed scene with some suspense to it, and I actually like that. I think that's the best directed scene of the entire movie, to be honest with you, is the fog scene. That scene is actually pretty cool. I enjoyed it, at least. Uh, so yeah, pretty much those are all my basic thoughts on Cujo. Like I said, not really a whole lot to go off from. This is just a basic movie, and I'm gonna give it a grade of a 6.5 out of 10. A 6.5 out of 10 is what Cujo is, and I think it's a solid enough grade for an overall decently made movie based of a Stephen King novel that had a flimsy premise to begin with. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Cujo. Let me know yours in the comment sections down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I'll check you back next time for more.